can't figure out what character. I feel like it's from the same series from Seven Deadly Sins. I can't figure out who the Demon King Zeldris in what I assume is his final form. Could not be his final form, but current form. Brand new shiny evil mega goddess powers all back form. I swear there's some other character in the series that I look at his face and I just think of. I don't know. I want to say like the vampire guy. Like remember the vampire king. I'm stuttering really badly like going into this video because I'm more of like questioning this. I feel like it is the vampire. I don't know. Either way, going into this chapter, it's been like this for the last couple chapters. There's been some stuff that I'm like, yeah, I dig this, I like this, but at the same time, I get salty at a couple parts. One is this design. It's weird because I like it, but I don't get final boss vibes from it. I don't know, like with the fallen angel Maelstorosa, and he was this kind of like in between light and dark, and shooting these black and white beams everywhere, and he had all those cool tools and whatnot, and all this psychotic, pretty much chaos. Like he had like this like power of like Twilight chaos. I don't mean Twilight the stupid movies. I mean like, in between light and dark. And that was like, he had the feeling of a final villain. I don't know, like this guy, I think one of the reasons also, it's like the beard, the face, and I think the raw black like color like scheme is what reminds me of the Vampire King dude, which I had a small theory going into this, like as the chapter came out, that I think made it more interesting. But again, I feel like I'm reading into it. Like maybe the Demon King, like when he took the form, he was like, I'm gonna take the most horrific, powerful form I can, and because maybe Zeldris in some way related the Vampire King in his mind, only because like related to his girl and like they got locked away. I don't know. I don't really know how to really kind of like figure out a way to describe that. Like it is kind of like trying to figure out a connection between Vampire King and this, and obviously Zeldris' connection with vampires, and Demon King's obviously in Zeldris' buddy. I don't know. I was curious of why he's using a katana from the looks of it, because Zeldris used an executioner's blade, and the Demon King used a great sword, and katanas and whatnot are from a completely different country, not related to Britannia or the demons. I don't know. I'm just gonna chalk it up to an aesthetic. I'm not too keenly sure on why he would use a katana, other than like, I guess it's a cool sword. It doesn't scream like final bad guy, Britannian or Arthurian tale like theme. Demon, like it screams just like you just have a cool demon swordsman. I don't know, but I'm happy that he seems powerful again. Like he seems like he's giving Meliodas more of a push. I really like the panel when they're fighting and you just see kind of like the water parting between them from their slashes. Not like a huge emphasis, but just like a little bit of it without it having to kind of like hammer you over the head with it, or just make it obvious the author trying to get you to look. Then you saw like him slash Meliodas and see a big fissure come up. It doesn't look as big as like, I really wish that it was like across Britannia, but it just looks kind of like Galen's, critical strike from his critical overform. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if his like normal strikes, like without even trying, were like on par with all out Galen. I mean, that just makes sense to me. And it just kind of, at least gives it somewhat of a reasonable power without it just being that huge power spike. But I kind of am expecting like a huge, end of series power jump. Especially the author's last series did that. What Congo Bancho like went from like blowing up skyscrapers to like splitting Japan apart. But hearing like a much more back and forth between the Demon King and Meliodas. Meliodas finally showing signs of damage. They're going at it, and I like the design, I like the choreography, and then I like that he's like feeling like a threat, but I don't like the vibe he's giving off, like the design, like, and even though he's giving off like, okay, he can fight in a vibe, it's not like a big villain, because now they're about equal. Like he should be like, obviously he's not, he says he's like testing him, so he's not going all out, so that's, you're gonna have to take that into account. But he says like, as like this other members of the Sins are coming over, he's like something's coming at a tremendous speed, and I feel like he shouldn't he shouldn't look alarmed in that panel. It should just be like oh, more approaching. And it just kind of like adds like oh no, like these guys combined are gonna crush him, because they already combined beat him before. And I would say in his superior body, because Meliodas is much stronger than Zeldris, But let's just see. My legit complaint, and I was very upset about this in the chapter, even like looking in it, there were parts like I liked and that I didn't like. This, legitimately, I was upset about, because the funny thing is, going back through my reviews, one thing that I've constantly complained about consistently throughout Seven Deadly Sins that has bothered me is the lack of Indura, because they were introduced as pretty much like high-level demons like last resort, and we never saw them use it. But then the Demon King brought in an Indura, and not only was it an Indura, but it was a former Ten Commandments Indura, so it was like pretty much like stronger than normal Indura. And they've already defeated it, and they defeated it off panel after beating up on it pretty much for a chapter. I'm legitimately upset about that, because I love the design, and if you know something about me, is I am a sucker for cool monster designs. Like, I will watch a movie, regardless of how good it is, purely if it has a cool monster in it. And Seven Deadly Sins took a really cool monster, and then they off-panel beat it, and that was like the first time we got a legit Indura in canon, because the one in the movie's not canon. That movie, I'm glad it's not canon. It was not a good movie. And then the two Indura we saw originally, when we saw Monspiet and Derriere, theirs was like not fully finished. They were still, as we saw, like turning into the Indura, because they were still very humanoid at the time. And we saw as the fight was progressing, they were becoming more monstrous. And then we see what like a full Indura looks like, obviously here, and you see some of them in some of like the volume extra pages, or just there's a couple of them they talked about, and it's what's more frustrating is one of them was like a former comrade of Galen, and yet like you have obviously a story for it, and yet you just never use them, and it's frustrating to me, because it was something that like I complained about legitimately. I was just really upset that they were never really utilized, and then we got one utilized, and it's like, oh shit, and it's apparently a big deal for one. Nothing, and we got like nothing out of it. It got beat up by by members of the Seven Deadly Sins, and it made a bunch of spores that amounted to a cool Escanor part. That was legit. Escanor got a really cool part, which that's a thumbs up. But I feel like the Indura should have been like, this is the part in the chapter like the Demon King got serious, like he's got a full power back. Then him and Meliodas start fighting, and then we pan back to like the Demon King, or the Indura and them fighting, because that could have been the thing. It could have hyped them all up, and all the other characters could have got a fight. Imagine, okay, still bring the members of the Seven Deadly Sins over afterwards, or something, because now you've got Escanor and Male also powered up on their way, both having Sunshine, and you've got Arthur foreshadowed coming back. And he's going to probably unlock the full power of Excalibur, because we saw before he was only like pretty much like a step into like the full power of it. And it's a holy sword, so it's going to do more damage against demons. I'm just nervous because, like, one, I'm upset because the goddamn Indura got off-paneled, and for some reason the Demon King only called over one. I don't understand why he would only call over one. Why, if like the whole thing are 10 Commandment demons, are like, the thing is they're still loyal to the Demon King, so the Demon King has some influence on them. Why wouldn't you bring over a couple of them? Because we know there's at least some that the author planned out that have backstories and relations to members of the 10 Commandments. I'm assuming those are former 10 Commandment members. At least one is, because it was directly tied to Galen, and they used to be friends. And yet you don't use them, and you don't have to. But this one Indura could have been your segue into other Induras, and at least give a display of them. And you didn't. It's like the most frustrating thing, I think, in Seven Deadly Sins. It's like with Male, the thing is with Male, and I'm going to wrap this up because I'm going to rant a little bit. The thing with Male is he didn't have to be the final villain. He didn't have to be. I thought he was. I thought he had the perfect setup and foreshadowing and like motivation, position of the story to be the final villain. Then he got beaten, and then the Demon King became the final villain seemingly, and he's super lame in comparison. But it makes sense of still the Demon King or the Supreme Goddess. Them becoming the final villain is still logical, though it's not what I would prefer because I don't think it had a better like story write-up. They're just pretty much powerful opponents, whereas Maelstrom Rosa had a lot of good aspects to him. You know, he was this scorned and defeated person in a love triangle, and he lost to his rival, who was literally not his I'm competition against your rival. It's literally the opposing side of war's rival. Like you're your team's best guy, and he is their team's best guy, and the woman that you love, who you've been serving your whole life, joins up and falls in love with the guy you've been trying to kill for centuries and centuries, who's like your enemy's like biggest person. And then you know you have all this stuff like we know with like, you know, he was a demon for a while, the darkness like was corrupting him, and he became crazy, and he's going through all these transformations, and it was really cool. But like the Demon King, again, he at least had a position where it was like, even though I don't agree he is the final villain, well, I don't agree with him becoming the final villain of it, like the idea of it, I didn't like that transition, but it makes sense. The Indura and their forms were hyped up as like an existent power-up, like a last resort in the series, but they've never been utilized since, other than this one part where he got beaten off panel. And it's like, why? Why would you do that? Why would you do that? It's like in One Piece, because awakening is a thing, and Oda just never used it after. Like he introduces it, never uses it. Like the idea of that, or it'd be like if we got the Natsu got, you know, we got the scenes of him getting Dragon Force, and then we get the explanation and like how you achieve it, and we find out the drawbacks of it and the severity of it and all these things, and then it just never happens. Never happens. And like you have multiple characters on both sides that could do it but just don't, and it's just like, why? But maybe I'm gonna pray. All right, this is gonna be my saving grace for Seven Deadly Sins, and I'm hoping this happens. If this happens, I will at least be happy to a degree, and that is if the Demon King in his last moments, he's like, I'm gonna lose, and goes Indura, and it's just I don't care if I become a mindless monster. I want at least the satisfaction of defeating you guys after you've done all this to me. If that happens, at least I'll be happy. Because like it's such a frustrating thing to have this really cool like last resort set up in the series and just never use it. And it's not like something like Fairy Tail has Lost Aspect, which if you don't read Fairy Tail, it's like a special boost that you can add to a spell, and it will increase it multiple hundred times, but after you cast it, you fade from existence, and your existence in people's memories is wiped. So you have this like big last resort. We only know one character that knows it. He'll probably never use it because like character moments like pretty much put it into like, you shouldn't use it. Like he already had like a suicide move, and you know we know like the character moments of why led up to it. Like even though he knows it, there's very little chance that he would ever use it unless it was like I'm just gonna give it an example real quick. Unless it was like protecting like you know his loved one, like if Juby ever got married, or you know they had a kid, and it was like, you know, them, it's like I have to protect them or they will die. This is all I can do, kind of thing. But like with the Ten Commandments and like something like the demon generals and stuff, it's like they were losing and their options were use this or die, and they didn't. And like they could have, obviously some of them couldn't. Monspied and Derek couldn't because, you know, they already did and they only had one heart left. But like, who were the other ones? I'm pretty sure there was like another demon that had it, but Cusack and Chandler definitely did. And their silhouettes were shown. We saw that back when Arthur like pretty much got flexed on by them, and it showed like their pretty much their true demon form, which I think anyone can guess is their Indura. And then it was like, don't show it, and then the original sinner, and then he also didn't use it, even though he had his power literally kills him in the process of using it. Nothing, and it's like, okay, thanks series. I appreciate you shafting me on a power you established. Okay. But that'll be, let me just put that on my prayer. I mean, I'm not religious, but I'll put that just in a prayer box of, please, Demon King, before you die, at least use Indura. Even if it's for one it's for one chapter, literally the last chapter of the battle. It's just him being an Indura and throwing big attacks and they defeat him. I just want to see some Indura. It's such a frustrating thing to know that the bad guys and the main character too have this ability in the end of especially me, of just like who is a sucker for cool monsters. You have these bad guys who, if they have to, their last resort is they could turn into a giant super cool powerhouse monster and just don't. And it's like, god damn it. It's even worse because we know some of their designs. Like, just go back and look at that page where you see the demons, like when they flex on Arthur and you see like their auras, like what I would assume like their demon form will be when they finally use Indura, and you never see them, and it's just like, god damn it, why would you cock tease something so cool and never do anything with it? I don't know, but all I can hope again is that Nakaba does a sequel series or a spinoff that takes place in the same world, but has a different plot and characters, and maybe an Indura will show up, or have demons and they'll get hyped up with Indura, like knowing how to do it, and maybe they'll use it at some point. As long as I get some Indura ever. And I know, like, I just realized like half of this review so far has been complaining about the Indura, but you don't understand how much I wanted these things to, go around and rampage. And it's either cool designs and the cool things that they could do, because they've been so hyped, and they've been like this, even amongst like the big shots and like the demons in the Goddess Clan, the Indura have been like super hyped, and yet we've got like barely anything for that, and it's like, god damn it, why? It's not like fairy tale like dragons. There's still like some dragons doing stuff, but it's like dragons were hyped throughout the series, but we know they're mostly extinct. We know that there's only a handful of Indura, but this guy who's now the final boss can command them to a degree and like call upon them, and yet doesn't. And they could have went to the demon world and fought him and saw Indura and saw a bunch of them, but didn't. Anyway, I don't want to rant any further. Drop a comment below and tell me what you think about this. I mean, there's still some cool stuff in the chat. I like this form, but it's not as cool as it's not nearly even close to as cool as the Fallen Angel Melsteros. I don't know. Tell me though what you think. I want to hear what you guys have to say. And I really appreciate if you thumbs up the video, but friend the like button and the subscribe button, and check out my other videos. But I appreciate everyone who's already subscribed, and thank you all for listening. Bye.